white people are literally caping for illegal criminal alien rapists.
What?
See?
You mean talking about the liberals? So look, BLM is not a white movement. BLM is a black movement. The people got rich off of BLM.
Who are
black.
the people?
The whole defund the police thing is largely
Let me ask you a question. No, it's
Obviously,
not. No, it's not.
Yeah, that was largely a black
That's
thing,
not
right?
largely black.
Oh, my
BLM,
goodness.
dude, who's the number
All the leaders of BLM are black. Yes, there are white liberals. We all, and they suck. There's no
There are
denying that.
white politicians
But
getting on
the
stage.
murders go back before defund the police. Okay, the murders that have been happening didn't start in 2020 or whatever. It started decades ago.
I'm gonna get to that too. But what I want to point out is the fact: white people defend criminality. I know that because the number one people advocating for criminal, illegal, alien, migrant rapists to be in this country and get due process. They're literally killing white women, and other white women and white men are fighting Donald Trump tooth and nail to let those people stay in the country. Am I wrong or am I right?
There are people like that. They're liberals. There's
a lot of them.
Sure. As a far right racist, okay, the way I look at stuff like that is that obviously people like me, we don't want the migrants here. We don't want any of them. We don't want to see our people getting killed by black people. The fact that white liberals disagree with me doesn't really it's not really relevant. I'm not going to be like, oh, you know what? The white liberals I have to get rid of because they're like in my tribe.
That's the biggest problem.
That's in the family. You know what I mean? That's in the family. That's like my problem in the family to deal with.
You believe
Same with the school shooters and whatever bad things white people are doing. Again, that's a white people problem that white people have to confront and deal with. But when it comes to problems from other races, that's like an outside foreign influence, foreign threat on my people. So I look at them separately. I look at them, they're different.
Can you look at what percentage of black people actually vote? Because that's your problem. You believe in God. You believe in Jesus. He's your savior. The Bible says you have to start in your house first.
Right.
Because the main problem is in your house. White people by far make up the vast majority of voters in America. Literally, if you guys just came together on a few issues, you could make America look exactly the way you want it to look. But you're going to blame this on 14% of the population when there are people within that population who are like, why the hell are these idiots voting to defund the police?
But if only white people voted, the whole country would be red across the board.
So why don't you guys all agree and vote?
Yeah, there's still white liberals, but the problem
white
is
people are divided right down the middle, 50-50.
No, there's more conservatives. That's why the whole country would be red if only white people voted. The reason the whole country's not red is not because of white liberals. It's because all the minorities backing the white liberals or vice versa.
If you look up the voting percentages, white people and lately Hispanic people are divided damn near 50-50 on liberal and conservative support. You got half of your group that's just a bunch of degenerates, and they love promoting and perpetuating degeneracy, but you don't want to accept that. So what you're doing is you're punching down on black people who really are losing our voting power by the second. And there is a significant portion of black people who don't want crime, don't want people getting murdered in the street. But we are not strong enough alone to beat the white degenerate liberals and the degenerates among our own group. They outnumber us.
This is a complete self-defeating argument because even if whites were split 50-50, Republican, Democrat, which they're not.
Can you just fact
even if they were, the blacks are like 90% Democrat. So if voting Democrat makes you a degenerate, the black people have a way bigger problem going on there than the white people.
Listen, black people vote Democrat.
Yes.
No matter what the Democrats are pushing, right? This is a fact.
Less so now than before, but still, yeah.
Less so, but so if the Democrats came and said, we're going to clean up the streets, we're going to get rid of the criminals, black people would still what?
Vote for them.
Vote Democrat.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to get you to comprehend. If we just follow along with whatever the Democrats want to do, the Democrats are the degenerates. That's because we're voting, but they're deciding what we're voting for.
Every time I point out a thing that black people do, you pass you don't take accountability. It's always somebody else's fault.
This is a fact, Adam.
It's white people's fault that Africa's not doing good.
No, I didn't say anything about white people in Africa.
It's Democrats' fault that black people vote degenerately.
That is. A Democrat gets on stage and says shit like, well, our daughter, we need to do transgender rights.
Yeah.
Black people don't even believe in transgender rights. We just go along with it.
What does that say about black people?
What it's saying about you is you guys have a degenerate nature, and unfortunately, black people follow along with you as if you're on the liberal side and do whatever you say is cool.
But you're saying this to someone who would presumably vote in the same direction that you would.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So while I argue against the degeneracy in black, see me, I focus on the element within my own group that's degenerate. You do the worst thing possible. You try to focus on other groups of people instead of first addressing the element in your demographic that is really the root of all this shit.
Well, the problem is that the other people are in the house with us. So my view is like get them out of the house and then clean up the house when it's less cluttered.
You still wouldn't be able to clean up the house because those degenerate ideas are entrenched into that side of the aisle. So if it's not blacks, it's just going to be Antifa. Antifa was the one burning shit down. Black Lives Matter, they did participate. But the people who were throwing the Molotov cocktails, burning down the police stations, those were largely Antifa terrorists, which is primarily made up of white people. You don't even know one black member of Antifa.
I don't know any members of Antifa.
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
they wear masks for a reason,
But you can see what skin color they are.
I think Antifa is probably largely white.
But also, black people invented defund the police.
Okay, but who pushed that narrative? Who adopted that?
There's a lot of useful white people, like Robin DiAngelo is one of the leading voices of the whole like white fragility movement or whatever. But like obviously that's very influential to black people who read these texts and force it upon each other.
Let me give you some names you know. Bernie Sanders, Andrea Ocasio-Cortez.
Puerto Rican.
Listen, no, right. But see, now we want to go into religion. See, but Joe Biden, he was talking that shit, and then at the very end, he was like, hey, we got to drop that shit because it's hurting us.
But you're not willing to go along with him when he says that he doesn't feel any solidarity with Jews.
No, because Jewish people and white people, which Jewish people are white, they have been in cahoots in many economic ventures that have hurt a lot of people around the world. Slave ships were owned by Jews that the white people sailed on to get over to America. Am I wrong?
No, that's absolutely true.
Okay, don't try to play me. I know this shit. So, but what I'm telling you is, if a black person says defund the police, it doesn't even make a sound. But when a white person who's a politician like Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, who should know better, gets on the largest stage in America and starts saying that shit, that's when it becomes a problem.
ChatGPT says that the Jews didn't own the slave ships.
Man, ChatGPT, they're full of shit. I'm telling you right now. Listen. Israel manipulated that shit. You can't. I'm telling you.
Brandon, if I agree with you that we can't get rid of the ideas because the degenerate ideas are too entrenched, that just brings me
white people.
Yeah, if I agree, and I think there's some truth to that, then that just brings me back to my original thing, which is, well, I got to get the people who are killing us to stop killing us.
Right. And you want me to tell you how you do that?
Yes, please.
Stop stripping parents of their power to discipline their children. That's all this is rooted in. You didn't have this shit happening in the 40s, the 50s, when white people were the most racist. Less white people were dying at the hands of white people. Black people.
Yes.
Why is that? Because your daddy beat your... No, because I know that's what you want to think, but this is the thing. Because if your daddy is in the house and he gonna beat your ass if you go out there and do something crazy, or your mama gonna whoop your ass if you do something crazy, that's gonna make you think twice before you go do some degenerate shit. That's gonna force you to kind of straighten up. When white people strip black people of the ability to discipline their children.
But how have white people done that?
Because he knows. What is DCFS? What is child protective? What is all this crap? Go look it up. They've literally made it against the law to use corporal punishment against your children. Not limited
against the law,
including but not limited to even spanking.
I never heard that.
Okay, well, you need to look it up. Like in California, right? corporal punishment is not necessarily illegal, but they say if your discipline causes trauma to your child will be removed from you. Now, who defines trauma? Oh, he's crying because he got his ass whooped. Okay, we can remove them. If you whoop your kid's ass, you're going to jail. 100%. When you remove that power, you strip the parents of that power, guess what? Kids went crazy, and black kids go a little bit harder because just the way our culture is. Now you got O Block. You didn't have O Block in Chicago in the 1980s or the 90s. You didn't have all that violence. But when you started to strip parents of the power to discipline their children the way they see fit, now you got a bunch of people who have no authority over their children, and their children are parenting themselves, and they are getting sucked into all this violent behavior.
So you think the X factor is being able to legally beat the shit out of your kid?
Hell yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I got my ass whooped. Did you get your ass whooped?
Yeah.
Did you go?
I don't think it was a good thing. I don't think it was good.
No, but what I'm saying, some people go above and beyond, right?
Right.
But just the fear of your father, the fear of your mother, greatly impacts the decision making. Did your dad whoop your ass?
A little bit, yeah.
So before you did something bad, what's the first thing you thought about?
Getting my ass whooped.
Our kids now don't have that fear.
Right.
They say, I wish you would touch me. I'm going to call the police. And you're going to go to jail. And you know where you're going to go? Right to jail. Once you remove that hedge, now you're opening the gate for all types of bullshit to happen.
Couple things here. Okay. First of all, I guarantee you most white parents today are not interested in beating their kids. They're not doing it because it's illegal. They don't want to do it. And you don't have white kids getting into the same kind of criminal activity to anywhere nearly the same state. So this is this kind of thing that happens all the time where they say, oh, why are they committing so much crime? It's like, well, because they don't beat their kids. But okay, well, white parents aren't beating their kids either. You don't see them going out joining O gang or whatever. What is that?
Block. Yeah.
And then like people say the same thing. Like white conservatives will say, oh, it's the music, it's the culture, it's like the rap music. But like white kids listen to rap music too. They don't go out and gangbang because they listen to a Snoop Dogg song or whatever. And then the other thing I wanted to say is where are the black fathers? Because you mentioned them not being in the house. Did white people kick them out of the house too?
I'm going to get to that point. But what I'm telling you is this. We just witnessed 2 little kids having a shootout with the police. Those kids were not black. And I guarantee you white kids are committing way more crime now than they were in 1960 when their daddy was putting his foot in their ass. It's not happening as quickly because white people traditionally have a different mechanism for disciplining their children. And that goes back even to slavery and all that shit, but I'm not bringing that up. What I'm telling you is if you spare the rod, the biblical, you a Christian, you got that cross right there. You ruin the child. You guys have made it to where black people can't even use the rod. And we are seeing since that time, I bet you if we mark the time when corporal punishment became taboo, I bet you will see a significant increase in the crime rate in the black community. I know that I was scared to get my ass whooped, so I didn't do certain shit. These kids have no fear of their parents, and they are getting more violent, aggressive, and degenerate by the day. And black folks ain't passed no laws to end corporal punishment. We didn't make that shit taboo. Our mom was like, nah, I'm gonna whoop your ass if you do that.
So what's your perspective on, like, I take it that you believe that black people genetically or whatever are just unlikely to be able to exist peacefully in society?
They're just more violent. They're more prone to violence. I think there's ways you can prove things. It's not like there's nothing you can do, but it requires a lot more discipline. I don't know, man. Where are the black dads? It would help if they stuck around, but I don't know how we're supposed to make that happen. I want to hear what Brandon has to say.
White people created entitlement programs. Entitlement programs required fathers to not be in the home for mothers to receive those entitlement programs.
Right.
And so if you're struggling to survive and you're like, man, you've been in struggle before with your wife or whoever, like, man, when money's a little tight, you know what I'm saying?
So the black women are kicking the men.
That's exactly what happened. They literally, basically your white run government, especially at that time, they incentivized the deconstruction of the black nuclear family. And that took the father out the home. And that left the mother to raise the kids. And slowly what they did was they started reducing the amount that they gave for the entitlements, which then required the mother to go to work while receiving entitlement. Well, if she's at work, because she got to make ends meet on her own, who's watching the kids? And the kids are left to their own devices. And the Bible, your Bible, says foolishness is tied up in the heart of a child. So we know children without parental supervision are most likely to do bad things.
My hunch, based on all these interviews I've done over the years, is that the women are not kicking these guys out of the house. These guys are doing their own thing. They want to get the to go be a Rolling Stone, do drugs, do whatever, start another family, whatever. I mean, it doesn't seem like the woman. Usually, the woman is pretty aggrieved by the man leaving, right?
No, well, the thing is, when you incentivize that type of behavior, right? So if the woman like, man, you're living here. If you're not here, I can get this money. This dude is like, man, I could go out catting all night if I don't got to be worried about these kids and my wife. Yeah, there were black men who were like, this is a great opportunity to go out and just be a whore, a whoremonger, a slut maker. But they did capitalize on that. But what I'm saying is, what if we would have just left these people where they were? Do you understand that even during slavery, most black children were raised in a two-parent home?
But if we were to take away welfare and the social safety net, the opinion of the average black activist would be that this was a massive detriment to the lives of black people, right? Like you're saying that somehow would make things better?
It was implemented to help black people. It wasn't implemented to destroy the black family. Maybe it had that effect. That's debatable, but they didn't do it thinking this is how we're going to black people. Also, it's worth noting, just like the hip hop music and beating your kids, there's no racial rules around welfare that say you have to be black to get welfare. So you don't see white women kicking their husbands to the curbs, being like, I'm going to go on welfare now. And so I don't know why that is either. If it's so great, if it's so great to just be on welfare and be a single mom, why don't more people do it from other races? Well,
you're just ignoring the historical record. All the way up into these entitlement programs were being introduced. Black kids were growing up in two-parent homes. You just read the statistic about the black wealth being half of white people a few decades removed from slavery. People were like my mom and my dad. We were growing up in the movie The Wonder Years. The show The Wonder Years is now about a black family. Two-parent home in the 60s. If you look at when entitlement programs were introduced, everything declined at that point. So you can argue, I don't think that's the reason. No, that's exactly.
The Civil Rights Act happened, and I think that
was horrible.
Yes, good.
It was shit.
Wait, why was that horrible?
Let's get rid of the Civil Rights Act. Let's bring back segregation, and then everybody's happy.
Because it incentivized victimhood. It told black people, you need an unfair advantage so that you can be as successful as white people. But the thing is, if you would have just left shit alone, black people were already on that trajectory. We were already getting to the point where we were nipping at the heels of white people when it came to our wealth and all that stuff. The civil rights movement destroyed black America. Desegregation destroyed black America because it made us want to be participants.
What are we arguing about, man? We agree on everything that matters.
But who instituted this shit? Who voted that into law?
Even if I agree that it was white people, that doesn't, let's focus on the president. So let's just focus on getting segregation back, repealing civil rights and fixing all the problems.
I'll do this. I'll agree with you on that. If you agree that white people implemented all the shit that led to where we are now.
Yes, they did.
Okay, you just lost the debate.
I don't think the terms of the debate were clearly defined, but either way, like if you're acknowledging that white people did all of this work to desegregate America, isn't this like really spitting in the face of the argument that white people are inherently racist and have really begrudgingly, given into this progress?
No, I believe those things were done out of racism.
That's so.
I believe. No, listen.
I love
the number one beneficiary of civil rights affirmative action was not black people. It was white women.
Racist.
That's not true.
Yes, it's
so racist that we're going to give you money. We're going to give you your rights. We're going to stop beating you. Tell the police to, call off the dogs,
There's this black activist woman. I can't remember her name, but she said that. She said white women are the number one beneficiaries of affirmative. It's not true.
Yes, they are.
She just made it up. There's no data. No, she just made it up.
Listen,
it's not true.
Listen, when civil rights got passed, all these oppressed groups were included. It was not something that was exclusively for black people. That's one of the huge issues I have with civil rights. We fought for this shit, but when it came time for the benefits to be doled out, it went to everybody. One of the biggest beneficiaries of civil rights and of DEI, this is a fact even today, are white women. They were also, were white women not allowed to get the scholarships and all that stuff that were provided under the Civil Rights Act and affirmative action, right or wrong?
I don't know specifically about scholarships under the Civil Rights Act, but women probably get some scholarships, but when it comes to hiring under affirmative action, that all goes to black people. That's why that's why government jobs are full to the brim of black people. That's why you go to the DMV, you see black women
and white women.
But white women are a much bigger portion of the population.
Who goes to college at the highest rate? White men or white women?
White women.
Yes, why? Right, because affirmative action made it easier for them to go to college.
It's more complicated than that.
Nah, it's pretty simple.
No, there's a lot going on. Like college got so feminized that men didn't want to go anymore. And women were convinced they have to be these big boss bitches, so they all wanted to go. But the point is that black women and black people do get the most affirmative action jobs,
and white women
by far. Like if you're talking about like on a per capita, like a rate basis, it would be black people.
Okay, Fortune 500 companies. Are there more white female CEOs or black female CEOs?
I'm gonna guess white.
Right. If you look at,
that's not because necessarily because of
listen, action. Just look at the result. Look at the result. I'm trying to tell you, white women went from being in the kitchen, stay-at-home moms, to being Fortune 500 CEOs.
I don't think they're giving out the CEO positions based on
action. I don't think that's what that does.
Yeah, it's more
you'll
like
be surprised. You'll be surprised these days. You will be surprised. In the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion, stop yourself.
I mean, I can think of some examples that I've ran into.
Yeah, you guys argue it for the sake of arguing, but if you really look at it, the shit is true. DEI is basically the rehashing of affirmative action in all the things about equality. Mm-hmm. And if you look it up, white women benefited more from DEI than even black people. Gays and trans and white women, they benefited from that.
No.
I had an experience once where I had a meeting with a company, a large company, and the CEO was a woman of color, not black, but like Indian or some shit. And she was flanked by two white men who clearly were the most knowledgeable ones, who clearly deserved to have her job. And she was clearly there as a token, which even my liberal ass white wife could agree with. Like it was so painfully obvious.
Yeah.
So that definitely happens. But
and if you go to places where there's not a huge number of blacks or illegal or immigrants, that next one on that hierarchy for diversity, equity, inclusion are white women. And because there are more white women in America than black women, than Asian women, than Indian women, guess who, by sheer numbers, statistically speaking, have more advantage? White women.